So we normally do this on Friday nights, our dedication, but Alan and Misty are going to be gone this year, so we're going to do it tonight. We got a big crowd. I'd like to present this plaque here on behalf of the Fair Board. I'd like to present hard work and service. We love you guys. We thank y'all so much.
Thanks for coming out tonight to the 2022 Eddy County Swine Show. We have Dan Lane as our judge tonight. He is from Elgator, Iowa, quite a ways from here, and he's got an extensive judging pedigree. He judged Houston, San Antonio, all kinds of majors, Oklahoma Youth Expo, 16 state fairs, World Pork Expo, his master's degree from Iowa State University, married to his wife Peggy with 2 children, Keaton and Melanie. And let's give him a big round of applause for coming down here all the way from Iowa for his 2nd year.
Can we get all your Class 1 OPBs to the show ring? Class 1 OPBs to the show ring.
good evening to those of you that are ringside for tonight's show. Certainly my pleasure to have made the trip down and the opportunity to work with your young people again. Certainly something that I treasure. As we get into our OPBs here and you get started in the show, maybe not one to just reach out and grab you, say I'm the class winner, and so a little bit more to maybe sort through and kind of align. And Berkshire Bear here to my right to start the class off with, and I think that's the one that I think old sprung, good designed one. He's muscular when you get on the top side of his skeleton. He's big when you study him out of his hip, and he's bold when you get into the rear third of his body. He's shaped really good when you study his blade and his forearm and the way that he's made in through his rib and the stoutness that he's got in his stifle. His advantage over the Burt Gilt that comes in second is there's simply more to him. He's more robust in his rib. He's got more outward shape. His width advantage when he gets into the rear third of his body. This shouldered level, really attractive in the way that she comes and goes and got a neat look. That one just runs out of gas. Just doesn't have enough muscle when you get her stifle flattens when you get into the rear third of her body. Just doesn't have that extra stoutness that we're. Young man's bear that comes next does that. It's got just a little bit out of his hind leg, and he wants to kind of push his hind leg out and maybe not just plant and use it the way we'd like him to. We'd elevate that barrel ever so slightly at the point of his shoulder and make him just a little bit more attractive in the way off his hind. He doesn't work it forward, grab the ground and move back. He wants to shove it out to the side when he moves. You'd offer that barrel just a little bit of height to shoulder to make him balance. He's robust, he's stout, he's bold, he's muscular. Probably matches our class winner from a mass and width standpoint just pretty well, but maybe doesn't. We get into a drier made barrel. Right here at the top of his shoulder. Does it open up? Shape. I'd lay him back in his shoulder just a little bit. Out of himself ever so slightly as he plants his feet and uses his front. Open him up and make him a little truer right at the top side of his skeleton to match his frame size and his length aside. One here that's kind of really hard to read. That one's really immature in the way that he's built. You can see that he's pounds light compared to some of the other barrows in the class. I think the barrow has got some the side, length of rump, some extension. I don't see him quite as bold. I don't see him as quite as muscular. A little flatter in his blade. He just doesn't. If he'll add mass and width as he gets bigger, I think he could be pretty good because his side build's pretty good, his design's pretty good. He's just got to open up in his body cavity and his skeleton as he matures and kind of put all those things in one package. We get into just a stout featured, soft-centered one that comes next. Really got a big forelimb and really got a big arm. You study this one's arm and it's just huge, and study the way that he's made. That one just runs out of muscle. He's a little flatter when you study him over his top. He's for certain quite a bit flatter when you get to the rear third of his body. We change him ever so slightly on his hind leg. Young man's got a big one here that's maybe just frame size wise maybe would be a better fit for the next class. He's big and more and long and extended. You maybe open that one up just a little bit more. You stout him up in his skeleton just a little bit. Certainly offer him a little more muscle he gets away from us. A really nice set of pigs to get us started. Let's give him a great big round of applause.
If you could please bring your Class 2 OPBs to the show ring. Class 2 OPBs to the show ring. Class 1 OPBs, first place went to Alexis Moore from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Grayson Kirkendall from Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Jonathan Lopez, Country Clovers. Fourth place, Jacelyn Lopez, Zia Sharpshooters. Fifth place, Alexander West, Loving 4-H. Sixth place,
we amped up the quality a little bit as we brought in our second class. And I think, you got to get down to these three here, and I think three of them that I think put lots and lots of good things together and, and lots and lots to talk about inside of those three. But I think as you analyze the young lady's Berkshire gilt to my left here, that's what you study that one. That's the stout featured, square, good built one. That's great design. Got a really neat look, balanced, I think, extremely well. Get off the side of that one's got a great presence, got a great look. I think one that just stout structured, big chested, bold, really square when you get on the top side of it, really big when you get behind it, travels away well. Got a big forelimb, got a big hind limb, and really does a lot of things, I think, in a very good package. I think it gets closer when you talk about second and third. I like the Chester Barrow to be second, and I think that's the next really good design one that's really flexible in the way that he when you study him out of his hip and on his hind leg, then the spot out and goes there. I won't argue with you and say, hey, that spot barrow's got a lot more when you get into the rear third of his body. He does. That one's stouter in his hip, and he's got more dimension when you get right out in to the rear third of his skeleton, and I appreciate that about him. He's got a neat kind of a look. Behind his blade, I'd flex him just a little bit differently on his hind leg and make him just a little bit looser in the weight. Spot gilt comes next. Really got a lot of shape in her rib and really got a good shape when you get on the top side of her body. One that I think just offers a little bit more robust package as far as freshness and openness and bigness of limb and openness of body cavity and just a fresh, flexible than the other two. I think she's just a little bolder and wider and just a little bit more fresh in the way that she's put together. Get into the Poland gilt, and that's a big, long, extended gilt. It's really got extended in the central portion of her body. Study her from forelimb to flank. That one is extra long spine and really extended in the way that she's built, really extended out of her rump. You'd open her up just a little bit. You'd open up her rib cage and soften her up and give her just a little bit more body. But that one's extended and big and long. It's one that has a nice silhouette when you get off the side of her. Then we end with a Chester Barrow that's certainly, again, one that's big in his skeleton and grown well, and one that's stout in his forelimb, and he's got a big kind of a forearm working inside of him. I think if you're ringside, you can see that relative to the class, that one's probably not just robust enough in the way that he's built. Doesn't bring enough just muscle or meat hog shape to the table to be competitive with the other pigs in the drive. Again, another really good class. Let's give our young exhibitors here a nice round of applause. I didn't shut it off.
Class 1 Durocks to the wash racks, please. Class 1 Durocks to the wash rack.
I think it shut off.
Class 2, first place went to Swayze Fulmar from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Mason Golden, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place went to John King, Country Clovers. Fourth place, Zaylin Aragon, Loving 4-H. Fifth place, Madeline Clark, Carlsbad FFA. And sixth place, Abigail Marshall, Loving 4-H. And it's on when he's ready.
If you're ringside, I'd ask you to put your hands together. Let's congratulate our finalists here in our OPB division. Give them a nice round of applause. Really, our two that are in contention for champion is the young ladies Berkshire here to my left and the young ladies Berkshire here to my right. And as you analyze those two hogs, there's, again, two stout structured, two wide, bold, constructed hogs that got muscle and width and got dimension and power, and you like that about them. There's one of them that's just simply better from a build and design standpoint, simply better from a balance and look standpoint, flexibility, and just got more presence from a ring standpoint. I like the young ladies gilt that wins the second class to be our champion. that lets in our Chester White to vie against our other Berkshire that wins the first class. And again, those things that I talked about to time, balance and look and build and design and flexibility kind of all lie with the Chester barrel. We're going to keep our heavyweight division champions together. The Chester will be our reserve champion here at our OPBs.
Your OPB champion went to Swayze Fulmar, and your OPB reserve went to Mason Golden. Can I please get Class 1 Durocks to the show ring? Class 1 Durocks to the show ring. Please bring all your Class 2 Durocks to the wash rack. Class 2 Durocks to the wash rack.
really a nice set of Durocks to get our Durock division off. And I think we got the smallest one in the class and one of the biggest ones in the class here in the center of the ring to vie for our class winner. And both of them are very high quality, and both of them have some things that you really like about them, and maybe a place or two that you change about them. I like the young ladies barrow to go ahead and win the class. I think that's the stouter four-armed, square-chested one that's a little bolder when you study him coming right out of the top side of his skeleton. He's a little bigger behind his blade. Certainly bigger when you study him out of his hip. He's bolder in his stifle, and he's got more dimension when you get in the rear third of his body. I'd change his hind leg just a little bit, to be honest, to pick on him. That one needs to flex just a little bit differently on his hind leg. I don't think it's something that's going to get him in trouble, but I think that's an advantage the young man's barrow's got over that barrow, is that he just flexes a little differently or a little better on his hind leg, and I like that about it. A little shorter sided barrow comes next. One that's a little shorter faced, a little shorter fronted when you study him up there, not as stout in his bone work. And I don't think that's an age thing. You know, we talk about having a 30 or 40 pound spread there. I don't think 30 or 40 pounds is going to make a difference in that. He's not as big in his arm. He's not as big in his foot. He's not as big on his hind limb, and he's not as stout. He's not as extended in his rump. He's a little shorter in his rump. He's a little shorter and quicker in each of those components. But that's a good bodied one. Really got a great shape when you study him right into the rear third of his body. He's really shapy when you study him right there at about his 10th rib. He opens up and turns really well there, and I like that about him very, very well. Young man's got a good design gilt that comes next. He's level and one that balances, I think, well. I think he's one that's, of those that remain, this is the soundest structured one, the one that's the most flexible in the way that he comes and goes, or that she comes and goes. One that, again, get off the side of her and she balances up well. Get into her and she's got enough muscle. Not going to tell you she's the heaviest muscle one, because she's not, but I'm going to tell you she's got enough when you study her. Get into one here that's one that from the side you like really well, one that you'd open up just a little bit, you'd offer just a shot more muscle, change her ever so slight when you study her out of her hind leg. Same for the young lady's gilt that comes next, one that you like from the side really well, but you'd open up a little bit. This one's a little drier over her shoulder, a little drier in her heart, a little flatter on her rib, and it doesn't have that extra dimension of muscle all the way throughout, but one that's flexible and got a good design, one that's level and got a neat look when you get off the side of her. Well, I think her advantage over the gilt that's going to complete the class or the pig that's going to complete the class is simply hind leg structure and the ability to get out and use their hind leg well. Young lady's got a stout structured one that comes next. Huge, huge forelimb, got a big blade, got a big forearm, and I like that about her. One that, if you just study this one's hind limb, that's where we get some concerned. Wants to kind of push those hocks outside of her body, and then she functions out of her hip just a little differently. So we changed that one ever so slightly out there, out of her hip and on her hind leg, to make her more competitive in the drive. A really nice set of Durocks. Let's give our exhibitors a great big round of applause. It's on yet.
Can we get your Class 2 Durocks to the show ring? Class 2 Durocks to the show ring. Class 1, first place went to Grayson Kirkendall from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to James King, Loving FFA. Third place, Garrett Wages, Loving 4-H. Fourth place, Gracie Ballard, Loving 4-H. Fifth place, Danica Jo Rose from Loving 4-H. And sixth place, Alyssa Aragon, Loving 4-H. Can we please get your Class 3 Durocks to the wash rack? Class 3 Durocks to the wash rack.
Another awfully good set of Durocks to sort through, and I think you got to land at this pair on the front side. And that being said, I think there's one to win, and it's the young lady's barrel straight in front of me. I think that's the good design, good skeleton. Comes at you like a truck, square up over his top, big out of his rump. I think he's got a neat look when you get off the side of him. I think he's bold enough, he's square enough, he's wide enough, he balances good. Got a big stifle, got a big hip. I like that about him. He's better out of his hip and rump. He's square set out of his hip. He's better set up out of his shoulder and front end than the barrel that comes in too. This is another stout featured one. He's got a big forelimb and one that's bold chested. He's a little funkier in the way that he handles his hind leg. Maybe just square him just a little bit there in the way that he handles that hind leg, but that's a good bodied one that's shapely and muscular and stout. When you get off the side of him, I think does a lot of good things in one package. Yeah, lady's got a really, really neat one to look at from the side. That one's got an amazing silhouette and really got a cool build. Shoulder and hip match extremely well, and she gets him driven extremely well. She does a great job. I think that one's got a really neat look. I think you study him from a muscle standpoint, and he just gets out hustled compared to the other two. That one is not as shapely behind his blade. He's not as big out of his rump. He's not as bold. When you study him right in his heart and the way that he's built behind his blade, the way that he opens up down his top and his bigness is stifle, he just doesn't have what those other two had. But he's got a neat look. His balance is good. He's sound. He's flexible. He's got a big chest. He just doesn't have as much muscle when you get on top of him. This one probably doesn't balance quite as well as those front three did, but that's a big centered one. That's stout forelimb, burly backed and big centered and got a lot of body and a lot of muscle. We just maybe make that one balance just a little bit better. Then we get into three of them that are maybe just a little drier in their build. This one that comes out, shouldered, long-bodied one that just gets the shape of his shoulder and the way that he's made in his forelimb, and he just gets too vertical in his build. He doesn't open up with any just shape to his shoulder or shape to his rib. He's just need to open him up and give him more body. Same for the young man's gilt. That's a big hip one that's got muscle when you get behind him. But you study that gilt from her shape or rib standpoint and the way that she's made coming right out of the base of her chest into her body and her in the center portion of her cavity. That one just too vertical, not opened up, not soft enough, not enough just power inside that one. Same for the young lady's pig that comes next. This is probably the stoutest featured one as far as bone work is concerned. Got a big forelimb and a big hind limb. Flatter in his stifle, and he doesn't open up as much just dimension all the way throughout. That one reads a little coarser and more mature in his build as well. Gets a little plainer when you set him up in through his head and front end. Really, again, another excellent set of Durocks. Let's give him a big round of applause. Go on.
Please bring on your Class 3 Durocks to the show ring. Class 3 Durocks to the show ring. Class 2, first place went to Kaylee King, Loving FFA. Second place, Cheyenne Quintanilla, Loving 4-H. Third place, Jason Lopez, Tia Sharpshooters. Fourth place, Taylor Aragon, Loving 4-H. Fifth place, Brian Lacrosse,
Another excellent set of Durocks to sort through, and again, you get to a pair of them here on the front side, but again, I think there's one to land on, and that's the other man's barrel straight in front of him. Again, if you've been following me, that's the stout structured, good centered one that's big shape, got a good shape on top, big out of his rump. He's flexible and he's sound. He's one that gets out and uses the ring well. Got a big chest, big rump. Got a neat look when you get off the side of him. You'd maybe clean him right there, the top of his pole just a little bit. If you're going to pick on him, maybe stretch his neck just a little bit. But that's a good body, good centered one that's sound, flexible. Through his knee into his foot. He's better down at the surface. He's bolder at the base of his rib. He's just a little bolder and thicker when he's sitting right. This is another good design, good built one that's flexible and got a neat kind of a look when you get off the side of him. One that really balances well. It's got enough proportion and look. He's a barrel that uses his hip and hind leg well. He's got a neat kind of a neat side build that balances really well. Young lady's got one that I think fits with our top two exceptionally well as far as just stoutness and build and openness and dimension. We want to change this one's rump just a little bit. You can see that she wants to push out of her hip just a little differently. It starts right up here in her ham loin junction, and then you can see she kind of wiggles out of her hind leg just a little bit. But that's a big forelimb, that's a big top. The way that she's built right there into her rib, I like that gilt quite a bit, and that the way that she's made that portion of her body. If we could just get in and redesign that hip and hind leg, then we find one that runs with that top pair of them, because she's every bit as stout and as bold and as big when you study her up in through a rump. And we're going to get into three of them that we'd maybe just offer a little bit more center body shape to. This is the best design one of those three. This is the most attractive and built the best from the side. He's the most flexible. He's the one that uses his limbs the most correctly. He's the most athletic of those three, but you just offer him a little more shape of rib. You offer him just a little more depth of body and openness of heart if you're going to change that one. But I like his skeleton. I like his build. I think extremely well. Same for the young lady's a gilt that comes next, one that's athletic and sound and flexible. Just need to her rib, more openness to her heart and her cavity, and the way that she's a little bit. One that's maybe just doesn't handle her feet and legs quite as well as we'd like, but that's a robust bodied one that's got rib, got dimension, got lots of shape to her forerib, and got a big kind of a top. You can see if you're ringside, needs to maybe handle her hind legs just a little different. Nice set of Durocks. Let's give them a great big round of applause.
Class 1 Hampshires to the wash rack. For Class 3 Durocks, first place went to Mason Golden from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place, Trey Tarvin, Loving FFA. Third place, Addison Tarvin, Country Clovers. Fourth place, Madeline Clark, Carlsbad FFA. Fifth place, Madeline Clark, Carlsbad FFA. And sixth place, Abigail Marshall, Loving 4-H.
Awfully good set of Durocks. If you're ringside, I'd ask you to put your hands together. Let's give them a great big round of applause here. I think at 3 extra good ones, and again, there's one of them that probably suits me just a little better, just from a stoutness and build and squareness. You know, we study them at their chest and come to their hip, and just the way this one's built from a body mass standpoint, probably just a little better from that perspective. The young man's barrel right in front of me to be our champion. We had in that second, and we talked about that one having a neat look, but not being as good at the ground, not as stout, maybe not as good at his knee or out through his hip and rump as we find in our eventual champion. I think the one that pushed our champion the hardest is the young lady's barrel right in front of me, and that one's going to be our reserve champion out here today. Slow your pace just a little bit.
And your Durock reserve went to Kaylee King from Class 2. Congratulations. please bring all your Class 2 hams to the wash rack. Class 2 hams to the wash rack.
Awful good step. Vision off, and I think again you got to land on the pair that's here in the center of the ring. I think they're the best designed ones of the group. I think they're the pair that just get out and they have look and balance and build. And I think mass, their dimension. I like the young lady's Barrow to my right to be our class winner, young lady in the black shirt. I think that's a good centered one that's good bodied and shapely, muscular, big over his top, big. Come two is right here at the base of the ground. Full rib and the center portion of his body and the way that he shapes up into the top side of his skeleton. He's just simply wider, bolder, stouter, just built just proportionally, just square and more muscular all the way throughout. He's not as good up into the one's just a little freakier when you set him up into that front end, and I like that about him, but he's nowhere near as good right here at his base. He's nowhere as good when you set him on the top side of his skeleton, the way that he comes to the ground and the way that he's made just from a build and heart and dimension standpoint. He's good design, he's level, he's flexible, he's got a neat look, he handles his skeleton well, and that's where he's got an advantage over the Barrow that's gonna, or the Gilt, I think that's coming in 3, Gilt, I think. Gotta get my mind back in line. But a good design one, he's flexible, he's level, he's square, uses his hind leg well, gets out and travels and uses the ring well. Young lady's got a good Gilt that's certainly very muscular when you set him up on over her top. She's one that I change on her hind leg just a little bit, wants to particularly plant her left hind leg outside of her body cavity just a little bit, but that one's shapely and neat looking from the side. That one's got a lot of muscle and I like that about him. Young lady does a great job of getting this one showed. A good body, good design Barrow that's got muscle and dimension, a little lower fronted, maybe a little rounder out of his hip, and one that you maybe change just skeletally just a little bit, change his hind leg just a little bit and square him up in the way that he's made there. But his body mass is good, his shape of rib, his dimension, his just body capacity is really good. We just change his hind leg just a little bit, the way that it's made. Same for the young man's Gilt that comes next, change this one's hind legs ever so slightly, wants to just kind of hook them and then stab them outside of her body when she walks. You can see her kind of push them out there, just plant them hard outside of her body instead of using them straight forward, grabbing the ground and coming to. She just stabs them out to the side, and I want to change that about her. You'd offer that one just a shot more rib and body as well. Totally different kind of one. The young lady here does a good job with a very sound structured Barrow, one that gets out and travels well, uses the ring well. Good job, young lady. Uses the ring well, flexible in the way that he comes, not as balanced, not as good up into the front portion of his body, not as extended in his overall body skeleton. Really a nice set of Hampshires. Let's give him a nice round of applause.
Please bring all your Class 2 hamps to the show ring. Class 2 hamps to the show ring. In Class 1, first place went to Brooklyn Evans from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Cheyenne Quintanilla, Loving 4-H. Third place, Kaylee King, Loving FFA. Fourth place, Jason Lopez, Zia Sharpshooters. Fifth place, Stetson Quintanilla, Loving 4-H. And sixth place, Jasenia Nieto, Loving 4-H. Please bring all your Class 3 hamps to the wash rack. Class 3 hamps to the wash rack.
Another awfully good set of Hampshires to get our next class off with. And again, I think you got a pair of them here on the front side that you need to land on, and then some of them that we need to talk about on the way down that we need to just have conversation about. I think, again, you get the pair, but there's one of them to win, and that's the young lady's barrel straight in front of me. And I think if you study that one, again, that's the good design, good skeleton, good bodied one. That's the square built, attractive one that he's got a neat look. He's flexible in the way that he comes and goes. He's big over his top. He's big out of his rump. He gets out and handles the ring well. He's stout in his feature. Young lady's got one that's kind of getting grumpy on us, but that one follows the type of our class winner. Just a bold rib, big top, big ended one that's flexible and got muscle and dimension. I like his build. I like his design. I like his look. I think he's natural. He's bolder at his base. He's better at his rib. He's bolder in the center portion of his body. He's shapelier in the way that he's constructed in that portion of his body than the young lady's pig that's going to come next. Here's one that's a stout featured one that's kind of got some shape and got some muscle in him. I get concerned about the shape of his head and the maturity pattern that this one's got. I want to open him up in his heart and open him up in his rib and make him just a little bolder in the center portion of his body. That one just reads a little mature for me. If you're comfortable with that, you can move that one up quite a bit higher. I won't argue with you. That's just where I get hooked up. Same for the young lady's bear that comes next. Want to change this one's head just a little bit. Want to offer this just one a shot more oomph all the way throughout. Relative to those that we had to use above it, she's not as big over her top. She's not as big out of her rump. You want to change her ever so slightly on her left hind leg just a little bit. Young man's barrel that comes next is one that we'd elevated his shoulder and elevated his hip just a little bit to make him balance just a little better. But he's big centered, he's big topped, he's got lots of muscle, he's got lots of dimension. I like that about him. We just need to change him from a design and build standpoint a little bit if we're going to get him up any higher. Same for the young lady's barrel that's going to come next. One that we changed on his hind leg just a little bit, changes the way that he gets out and uses that hind leg, but certainly one that's got muscle and got dimension. We just square him up and change him in that portion of his body. Maybe offer him just a little bit more depth of heart and openness of forerib. Same for the young ladies. Gilt that's going to complete the class. One that we just make a little softer in her design, open her up in her center body cavity all the way throughout. Certainly one that's flexible and got lots of muscle. Let's give a nice round of applause. Another excellent class.
Please bring all your Class 3 hams to the show ring. Class 3 hams to the show ring. In Class 2, first place went to Julianne Cortezi from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place, Alyssa Eric. Place, Ariana Carrasco, Loving 4-H. Fourth place, Grayson Kirkendall, Cottonwood 4-H. Fifth place, Billy Nayland, Artesia FFA. Sixth place, Morgan Townsend, Cottonwood 4-H. Seventh place, Ashton Tarvin, Country Clovers. please bring your class 4 hams to the wash rack. Class 4 hams to the wash rack.
Another excellent set. Again, you get down to these top 3, and they're all 3 awfully good, and little things separate them. And I'll talk about this pair here on the front side that I think fit the class. Talk about the young lady's bear here to my right first. That's a good skeleton, stout featured one that's opened up and's got great shape through his rib. He's really got a distinct advantage in his chest floor. He's bolder when you study him at the top of his blade, and he's bigger in the center portion of his rib. Where does he have a disadvantage compared to the other barrel? He's not as big when you get to the rear third of his body. Front 2/3, that's where he has the advantage. Rear third, he's probably not as just stout in his hip, not as big in his stifle, not as bold when he gets away from you as we find in the barrel here. Young lady's barrel is one that doesn't come at you quite as wide down low. He comes some closer to his knees. He's a little flatter in his blade, and he doesn't open up quite as well. He's plainer in his face and up through his front end, and is a barrel that's a little flatter when you get in the center portion of his body, and so he doesn't have that robustness in the way that he's made. He does have more thickness of hip, and he's bigger when you study him out over his rump. So if you think about the proportions that I talked about, I think 2/3 of the advantage lands with this barrel, 1/3 of the advantage lands with this barrel. So I think 2/3 beats 1/3, right? 2/3 beats 1/3. And so when you think about it from a math standpoint, this barrel's got to win. That barrel's got to be second. Congratulations to both of them. A good skeleton, good design barrel comes next. Good skeleton, good design barrel comes next that simply runs out of gas relative to the 2 barrels we had above him. He's not as good in his rib cage or body as we find in our eventual class winner. He's not as big in his top or big in his hip or big in his rump. He doesn't have as much muscle as the barrel that comes second. But that's a good design one that's level and gets out and moves and handles the ring well. He's got a neat look when you get off the side of him. I like that about him. Young man's got a good body cavity barrel that's big in his center and's got lots of muscle on. We'd elevate him at the point of his shoulder, make him just a little more attractive in the way that he's constructed. Young lady's got one that's a big skeleton and a long spine. We'd open this one up just a little bit and then change it on its hind leg just a little bit. We'll just square it up out of its rump and make it a little better set on its hind leg. Now again, another excellent set of Hampshires. Let's give them a nice round of applause.
please bring your Class 4 hams to the show ring? Class 4 hams to the show ring. For Class 3, first place went to Brooklyn Evans from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Maddie Cooksey from Loving FFA. Third place, Caden Golden, Artesia FFA. Fourth place, Jonah Pope, Country Clovers. And fifth place, Taylor Salter, Artesia FFA. Please make sure all your first and second place hams are in the wash rack. First and second place hams are in the wash rack.
Another awfully good set of Hampshires, and this one goes 4 or 5 deep, and I think quality is really good. And that being said, there's one of them that I think suits me extremely well. I think one that's just flexible and stout and bold and wide. Got a great look. I like the young lady's barrel straight in front of me here to win the class. I think one that's really good from a build and design standpoint, one that's flexible and one that's got muscle and got dimension, got a big kind of a hip. He's got a neat look when you get off the side of him. He balances really well. Put him in motion and his head comes up, he levels, he squares up. He's got a neat look. His advantage in look and the way he's made up in through the foreregion of his body, his advantage in stifle and hip and muscularity, I think that's the one that has got to win the class. Young lady's got another one that I like extremely well. That's a stout featured one that's got a big kind of a blade and got a big kind of a forelimb. I like his chest, his openness, his squareness, his muscularity. It's a little plainer face, a little rounder up in through his head neck, but that's an awfully good one, I think, to sit right here. He'll be second in our class. Young lady's got an awfully good one that's going to come out in 3, maybe just a little flatter in his blade, a little flatter in the center portion of his body than the 2 that we had to drive off with. But study this one's build, his height to shoulder, his levelness, his squareness, and the way that he's made. That one's really neat from the side and really got a neat kind of a look and balances extremely well. He's just not as bold, not as wide, not as stout as those that we used on the front side. Good job, young lady. Get another one that I like the build of very well. Shoulder and hip match really well. Needs to be better out of his hip and on his hind leg. Wants to kind of pound his hind leg a little bit. Doesn't get out and stretch and use that hind leg quite as well. He's big over his back. He's big out of his chest. He's wide and robust, and I like that about him. He just needs to be better right there out of his hip and on his hind leg. Young man's got one that's good bodied and good centered and has got lots of shape. But little finer in his feature, not as stout in his bone work, not as just burly in the way that he's constructed. But that's certainly one that you like the body of, you like the dimension of, but he needs to be just a notch stouter to make him match the muscle that he's got on the top side of his cavity. Young lady's got a track star here for her, and that's unfortunate. He wants to get out and run on her, another good body barrel that you'd stouten up just a little bit. Good job, young lady. Another good body barrel that you'd stouten up just a little bit, offer just a shot more dimension or a shot more stoutness of bone, make him just a notch bigger in his frame size. Another good set of Hampshires. Let's give him a nice round of applause.
Kevin, wash racks? Please bring all your Yorks to the wash rack. All your Yorks to the wash rack. For Class 4, first place went to Eddy Fulmar, Artesia FFA. Second place, Jaylee England, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Grayson Kirkendall, Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, Jaylee England, Cottonwood 4-H. Fifth place, Trevor Pope, Country Clovers. And sixth place, Jasenia Nieto, Loving 4-H.
They already got that set up. Hey, you just do as you're told.
I am doing what I'm told, but you're not telling me what to do.
If I don't tell you what to do, then nothing will be done.
They don't do nothing? Doing what we're told. At least I ask questions. And I don't wait till the last minute. Like somebody.
If you're ringside, I'd ask you to put your hands together. Let's congratulate our Hampshire exhibitors on an awfully good division. Again, you get them out here and they're flexible, they're stout, they're bold, they're wide. They got a neat look and they balance extremely well. And you know, there's differences inside of them, little things you pick on, whether they're, you know, the tallest shouldered one, the longest bodied one, the truly stoutest or widest one, which one's the better on their pasterns, or you know, just little things that you pick apart as a judge, and the personal preferences that you've got as a judge. And I think as you do that and you think about one that you talk about just build and design and levelness and squareness, height to shoulder, squareness of chest, openness of body cavity, the one that comes at you the boldest and widest, the one that is the squarest coming right at you, and the biggest when you stutter you up over the top, and one that you get off the side of and you like the build of really well. I like the young lady's bear right here in front of me to win the class.
Thank you, sir.
We had in that second from that class, we talked about that one, you know, you love the hip and the muscle that one's got from behind. You'd open him up at the base of his chest. You'd make him just a little burlier when you study him right there coming out of his full rib and the way that he's made the center portion of his body. But his side build, his silhouette's really good, and he's got a neat kind of a look when you get off the side of him, and you like that about him. He's just not as good at the ground. He's not as stout in the way that he's constructed coming at you. The one that I thought pushed our champion the hardest is one that I like the shape of, I like the muscle of. He's not as good at the ground as our eventual champion. He's not as good when you study him right at the base of his chest, or his squareness from the top of his blade to the ground. But I think he's every bit as good from a design and build standpoint. I like the young lady's bear that wins the last class.
Thank you.
Your champion, Hampshire, went to Brooklyn Evans from Class 3, and your reserve went to Eddy from Class 4. Congratulations. Please bring all your Yorks to the show ring. please bring all your Class 1 crossbreeds to the wash rack. Class 1 crossbreeds to the wash rack.
Oops, sorry. Just one class of Yorkshires, and lots of give and take inside of the Yorkshires, but I think the one that I land on is the one that's the most correct in his skeleton. He's the one that gets out and handles the ring the best. Get on him and he shapes the best over his top. He's the biggest out of his rump, and yet he's got a good shape in through his rib, and he's got a good shape in his body. Clip this one just a little differently, and I think his presentation kind of comes together a little differently, but I think he does a lot of good things if you study through that. I like these young ladies bear in front of me to win the class. Young lady's got another good one. If we could change this one's hind leg just a little bit, and that's what's going to talk. We're going to talk about hind leg structure and kind of movement and dryness of rib quite a bit as we talk through these Yorkshires. But if we could change this one's hind leg a little bit, that's a big shaped one that's huge chested and really got lots of muscle and product in him. You'd soften his rib just a little bit. You'd flex him a little differently from behind, but he's got a neat look, got a neat balance, got a neat presence. I think does lots of good things also in one package. Front 2/3 of this one's good, got a good shape, got a good muscle. Want to flex her a little differently from behind. Maybe open this one up just ever so slightly when you get right at the ground. Then we get into a pair of barrows that are pretty similar in their build, their design and their length and extension. Good job, young lady. their design and length and extension. We want to open up both of them and their hearts. Want to give them more shape in their rib and body. I want to just soften them up in the center portion of their body. I thought this one was a little sounder than the barrel that's going to come next. I thought he was a little shapelier a little square when you study him out there in through his rump. Young lady's got probably the biggest muscled one of the class, and got lots of product inside of that one. Also the one that probably is more challenged on his hind leg just a little bit, one that's a little drier and harder in his heart, one that wants to roach up in the center of his top and just doesn't kind of ease out in his skeleton. We want to change that about him to make him just a little bit more flexible all the way throughout. Young man's got a big, long-sided one that's extended. We want to lay that one back in its knee, open him up at the base of its chest, and make him just a notch bolder at the ground to make her match what she's got, particularly out through her hip and rump. That one gets a little drier in her rib and a little forward in her shoulder, a little straighter. Same's got to be said for the young lady's barrel that comes out next. One that wants to get a little forward in his shoulder, wants to spin and turn out of his front end and get a little bulldog shaped in the way he's made up front. From there back, that's a good pig as far as his levelness and his squareness of the hip. We just need to put a different front end on that one if we're going to say we need to use him up any higher. Then we end with a good skeleton one that simply doesn't have enough muscle. He's not as big enough in his frame, and not big enough in his overall design, and not powerful enough in that muscle punch, but a good design pig that's sound and flexible. Good job, young man. Really a nice set of Yorkshires. Let's give him a great big round of applause.
I'm good. Good to go?
I just need to take a drink.
Saw that coming, huh?
Please bring all your Class 1 crossbreeds to the show ring. Class 1 crossbreeds to the show ring. Your first place York went to Maddie Cooksey. She's also your champion. Second place went to Trinley McCullough. She's also your reserve champion. Third place went to Kaylee King from Loving FFA. Fourth place went to Addison Tarvin, Country Clovers. Fifth place, Addie Fulmar, Artesia FFA. Sixth place, Trey Tarvin, Loving FFA. Seventh place, Taylor Salter, Artesia FFA. Eighth place, Joey Lopez III, Country Clovers.
Country Clovers, kill. Zia Sharpshooters, kill me. I don't want to miss those. It looks like Taylor. No, that's not. A lot of them are right. They're right there. Yeah.
Please bring all your Class 2 crosses to the wash rack. Class 2 crosses to the wash rack.
Awfully good pair right here on the front side, but I think, again, one to win. I like the young lady's barrel here to my left to go ahead and win the class. I think, again, one that, talk about skeletal build and design and flexibility, squareness of chest, bigness of top, look and build from the sides, muscularity over the top, gets out and uses the ring well. Really good from a design and build standpoint. A little plainer faced one that maybe not as elevated up through the front end, not as extended in that portion of her body, but one that, again, you like the mass and dimension of. One that, again, you have to get in behind him. Certainly got enough product and dimension. Fits with our class winner, just maybe not that extreme look and balance that we find in our eventual class winner. Young man's got a bigger skeleton, longer spined one than either of our top two. That one's a big frame, long spined one that's muscular in her design. We'd soften her up in her body a little bit to make her just a little softer in her ribs, softer in her flank. Just open her up and give her that body cavity that we have in that front too. But that one's got muscle and shape and dimension. I like that about her. I thought she fit with the shape and muscle that we had in our top two, and that's why I put her there. This is the softer centered one that comes next. That's got more ribbon body. It's a little quicker in his build. Probably shaped just a little bit too much like me, and just a little bit too much for his frame size and his extension. Needs to be a notch bigger in his overall build. The next two do that. They are both bigger in their frame and bigger in their skeleton. You can let the next one out also. They're both bigger skeleton, longer spine kind of gilts that are extended. They're a little drier in their build. They're not as muscular. They're not as bold and wide. They're not as three-dimensional as we had in those hogs that we had on the front side of the class. Nice set of pigs. Let's give our young exhibitors here a nice round of applause.
Please bring all your Class 2 crosses to the show ring. Class 2 crosses to the show ring. No. In Class 1, first place went to Brooklyn Evans from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Julianne Cortezi, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Luke Jerva, Country Clovers. Fourth place, Joey Lopez III, Country Clovers. Fifth place, Gracie Ballard, Loving 4-H. And sixth place, Autumn Harris, Loving 4-H. Please bring all your Class 3 crosses to the wash rack. Class 3 crosses to the wash rack.
Another really good pair on the front side, but again, one to win. You just talk about skeletal correctness and flexibility and design, along with look and balance. I like the young man's barrow to my left to go ahead and win the class. That's the good skeleton, good design one that's stout and wide and bold. He's good shaped and good body, got enough muscle and dimension. I'd offer him just a little bit more softness in the center of his rib. I think that's where our second place barrow's got an advantage. He's just a little bolder in that portion of his body. He's got a little more rib shape and dimension. Not as good on his hind leg, wants to pound those hind legs just a little bit. He's not as big when you study him right at the top of his hip as we find in our class winner, but a good bodied one that I like the side build of very well. I like his balance and look. I think he does a lot of good things in one package as well. A little give and take here in 3 and 4. I use the softer centered one here that's a little more robust in the way he's built. He's got a little more shape when you got on top of him. Certainly one that is a little fresher in the way that he's made in his rib and body. It's not as elevated, not as just balanced, and doesn't have that extreme look that we find in our top 2. But I thought he's functional. He gets out, he moves well. He's wide based. He's bold sprung. He's got muscle and dimension. Young lady's got another one that level topped, strong down his top, level out of his rump. He's a barrow that's got some shape in his rib, and he's got some muscle. He's a barrow that maybe he'd lift up on his front end, and I'd for sure have castrated him at a way different time than what he was. Young lady's got a big muscled one that's wide based and bold sprung. Lots of dimension, lots of width and power. We need to change this one on his hind leg just a little bit, maybe offer him just a little more frame size and a little bit more extension if we're going to make him more competitive. Then we end with one again. We change on our hind leg just a little bit and maybe open this one up from a body width and dimension standpoint. That's a body width and dimension standpoint compared to some of the others. Good class. Let's give them a nice round of applause.
Please bring all your Class 3 crosses to the show ring. Class 3 crosses to the show ring. Class 2, first place went to John King from Country Clovers. Second place went to Kaylee King, Loving FFA. Third place went to Jason Lopez, Zia Sharpshooters. Fourth place went to Alexis Moore, Cottonwood 4-H. Fifth place went to Mia Duran, Cottonwood 4-H. And sixth place went to Adriana Nieto, Loving 4-H. Please bring all your Class 4 crosses to the wash rack. Class 4 crosses to the wash rack.
Got an awfully good pair here on the front side of our next crossbred class. But again, there's one that needs to win, and it's the young lady's barrel that's right here in front of me. I think one, again, fits the mold of the ones that we've been using. Design and build, flexibility, got a big forelimb. He's level, he's square, he's correct. He's got a good look when you get off the side of him. He's certainly stout in his feature, big in his top, big in his rump, does a lot of good. Where's he better than the black barrel? He's better out of his hip, he's stouter and bolder, and he's got more dimension all the way throughout. Black Bear's a really good built one from the side. That one's neat to look at. It's got great presence and got a great look. He runs out of gas when you get into the rear third of his body. It doesn't match the muscle that he's got on the top side of his body cavity. And so we just need to offer that one a shot more power from behind to make it all kind of match and come together. Young man's got another predominantly black barrel that I like really well from a build standpoint. Really got a neat look off the side of him. He balances up extremely well. Does that, I think, really well. Need to stouten this one up in his bone work to make him match the muscle that he's got. He just comes out of balance a little bit from that perspective. But one that's muscular, he's long, he's sound, he's flexible. I like that about him. Get a bigger skeleton, kind of a Hampshire Guild year, one that's again stout in her bone work and one that's flexible in the way that she comes and goes. Need to offer this one probably just a shot more muscle. Same for the young man's barrel that's going to come out next. Need to offer that one a shot more muscle, but a good design, good built one that's flexible in the way that he uses his skeleton. He just needs to simply be wider and bolder all the way throughout. Then we're going to end with a gilt that I want to change on her hind leg just a little bit. Stouten this one up in her bone work also to make her match her muscle that she's got on up over her top and out through her rump, and then just flex her a little bit differently from behind. Again, another excellent class. Let's give our young exhibitors here a great big round of applause.
Please bring all your Class 4 crosses to the show ring. Class 4 crosses to the show ring. Class 3, first place went to Swayze Fulmar, Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Luke Jerva, Country Clovers. Third place went to Samuel Ballard, Loving 4-H. Fourth place went to Abigail Marshall, Loving 4-H. 5th place went to Stetson Quintanilla, Loving 4-H, and 6th place went to High Chadwick from Loving 4-H. Please bring all your Class 5 crosses to the wash rack. Class 5 crosses to the wash rack.
Another really good class, and I think again a top pair you like, and I think again for me one that sorts itself out. I like the young lady's black bear straight in front of me to win the class. That's a stout-legged, square-chested one that's got a big back and a big kind of a rump inside of him. You get off the side and he balances up well enough. I'm not going to say he's the prettiest one that we've seen tonight, but I'm going to say he balances up well enough. Get him in motion and he handles his skeleton well. Got a great rib shape, got a great body shape, and that's where I think he's got an advantage over the bear that comes into. He's stouter in his feature, he's better in his rib, he's bolder in the way he's constructing the center portion of his body, he's thicker out of his hip, and he's bolder when he gets right in behind him. The young lady's bear that's in second is the better looking one from a balance and build standpoint. He's more attractive, he's taller shouldered, he's better up out of his blade and front end, and I like that about him. He's finer in his features, smaller in his feet. He's flatter in his blade, he's narrower in his chest, he's not as bold, wide, or stout as the bear that we drive the class up with, and so that's the give and take inside that pair. I elected to stay what I've been doing all day, trying to stay with those that have more robust shape, more stoutness, more squareness, more muscularity inside of them. That's why I lined that pair the way I did. Young man's got a big centered one that comes next. He got a good kind of a rib and body, got lots of dimension, a little lower set to the ground, a little quicker in his maturity pattern, a little shorter in his rump, but one that I like from a body build and width and cavity and dimension standpoint. I like a lot of things about that one. A bigger skeleton one that's longer and more extended, that's a little drier in its build, needs to be a little softer in its makeup. Then we come to the bear that kind of has blown his hock. The young lady's barrel here's got I think it's his right hock that he's got big marbles on both sides of it. We need to just change him from a flexibility standpoint. Then we end with the white bear that we just make a notch bigger and more extended in his overall frame size, but certainly one that's wide and powerful and has lots of dimension. Let's give our exhibitors a nice round of applause. Another really good class.
Please bring all your Class 5 crosses to the show ring. Class 5 crosses to the show ring. For Class 4, first place went to Maddie Cooksey, Loving FFA. Second place went to Cheyenne Quintanilla, Loving 4-H. Third place, Chance Bowens, Artesia FFA. Fourth place, Jace Carrasco, Loving 4-H. Fifth place, Morgan Townsend, Cottonwood 4-H. And sixth place, Mia Duran, Cottonwood 4-H. Please bring all your Class 6 crosses to the wash track. Class 6 crosses to the wash track.
Another really good set of barrows, or market hogs, I should say, sorry. But again, one to win, and I like the young lady's barrow straight in front of me to win the class. Again, build and design, flexibility, muscle, squareness, just look and balance along with just being square and wide and bold. One that's big back, big top, big ended, really got a good, I like this one's freshness of rib. What I mean that, I mean just study the shape in his forerib and the openness that he's got in the center portion of his body, and the way that he just comes with a nice, well-fed kind of look to him from the side. His balance, his flexibility, his looseness of cavity, his looseness of skeleton. I think he does lots of good things. Black Pig's probably more, probably bigger ended than our class winner with just a little bit more muscle. Maybe doesn't come together from a balance standpoint quite as well. We'd flex it just a little differently out of its front end, but one that is just stout and wide and bold and's got lots of muscle and lots of product. His advantage over the gilt is there's simply more of him. He's bigger ended, he's bigger topped, and he's got more dimension. He's bolder at the ground. Young man's got a really neat gilt from the side. This one balances up extremely well. Kind of a breeding gilt shaped one that has a nice look from the side and a nice just look and balance. One that get into her and start studying her, you'd open her up at the ground, you'd give her more muscle when you get right in behind her, offer a shot, more dimension all the way throughout. She's better in her balance, better in her look and skeleton than the young lady's gilt that comes next. This one is more powerful than the one above her, but doesn't balance quite as well. A little lower fronted, a little plainer faced, a little softer footed, but one that's got oodles and oodles of muscle and width and dimension. Her body cavity and her shape, the rib and her dimension is better than the gilt that comes next. She's simply bolder sprung. She's bigger top, bigger muscled, got more dimension all the way throughout. A bigger frame gilt that's longer spined and more extended, that's just a little drier in her build, a little harsher in her center body, and a little harder in her body cavity, but certainly one that's got some muscle, got some length and some extension. The end with one that's probably just not as stout or bold, not as muscular as some of those that we had up the drive. The young man does a nice job with the bear, but he doesn't have that extra oomph and muscularity that we had in some of the other hogs. Again, another excellent class. Let's give him a nice big round of applause.
Please bring all your Class 6 crosses to the show ring. Class 6 crosses to the show ring. Class 5, first place went to Julianne Cortezi, Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Stetson Quintanilla, Loving 4-H. Third place, Trey Tarvin, Loving FFA. Fourth place, Zaylin Aragon, Loving 4-H. Fifth place, Addison Tarvin, Country Clovers. And sixth place, Garrett Wages, Loving 4-H. Please bring all your Class 7 crosses to the wash rack. Class 7 crosses to the wash rack.
Another awfully good class, and again, lots of quality. I think it's close here on the top pair, and I think there's give and take inside the pair of them, and I'll talk about them, I guess, as I analyze them. A young man that's kind of leading the group. That's the really neat one from the side. That's really attractive in the fore region of her body. Long down her spine, and one that just balances so well when you get off the side of her. A little drier in her rib, not as bold in her chest. Doesn't open up with as much shape in the center portion of her body. You change her ever so slightly there out of her hip and on her hind leg. She's not as stout in her bone work, not as big in her feet as we find in the other gilt. The other gilt's stouter feature, got a bigger blade, opened up, got more shape in her rib, got more body and dimension. She's bigger out of her hip, and she's got just a little bit more center all the way throughout. She certainly has the chest twist advantage and has the boldness advantage. She's a little plainer faced, right? She's not as good up into the front portion of her body, not as attractive there. But I think if you study her stoutness, her squareness, her mass, her muscularity, her openness of body cavity, I think she's got an advantage. I like the young man with the belted gilt to win the class. I like the black gilt to be second. Then we get into one that's I like the build up from the side. That's a tall shouldered, long spined one that's level and got a neat look from the side. Get into that one and study his robustness. And that one's nowhere near as good from a rib shape and body standpoint. He's a little flatter and just doesn't open up quite as well. You get into a shorter hipped one that's a little rounder, more mellow in the way that he's made. Is not as descriptive in his shape up over his top. He's one that just doesn't, is crisp in the way he's made along his loin edge, but that's a good bodied one that's got some rib and got some shape, and he's certainly one that you like, again, from a just from a build standpoint. The blue hog that comes next, another good bodied one that's deep in his rib and deep in his flank, and it's got good just shape of body and depth. That one's a little quicker in his build, a little plainer in his make, one that's a little more refined in his bone work. You'd stouten him up, maybe make him just a notch bigger in his kind if we're gonna change him. And then we get one that's totally different. We get a big skeleton one that's big framed and really extended and long, and really got just the total opposite. Lots of skeleton. We need to soften this one up just a little bit, give it just a little more body and dimension all the way throughout. Young lady does a nice job getting this one showed. So a nice set of hogs. Let's give them a great big round of applause.
Please bring your Class 7 crosses to the show ring. Class 7 crosses to the show ring. Class 6, first place went to Caden Golden, Artesia. I apologize.
First place went to James King. I was double checking.
First place went to James King, Loving FFA. Second place went to Caden Golden, Artesia FFA. Third place, Trinley McCullough, Loving 4-H. Fourth place, Chance Bowens, Artesia FFA. Fifth place, Hy Chadwick, Loving 4-H. Sixth place, Ashton Tarvin, Country Clovers.
Sorry about that. I was double checking. I thought I'd better check because I thought I heard it right and I didn't. Then I caught you right there. I was like, oh,
How many is in this one? 5. Well, if there's not any in there, then for sure make one, I'm sure. Well, I couldn't, this like stack couldn't have the first place, so I was like, is there another first place? And then now I'd like to go. And I might.
Also first and second place, cross street being walked up.
Kevin, wash off. First and second wash.
Please bring all your first and second crosses to the wash rack. First and second crosses to the wash rack.
a tough one to end up on. You know, as we talk about our last class of crossbreds, maybe that one that just didn't grab you coming out of the box, if you know what I'm saying, and lots of pieces and parts inside of them that you like really well, and then maybe some things that you'd fix about them just a little bit. And there's not just that one that reached out and gravitated to me and said, I'm the one that needs to win the class. And so that makes it a little more challenging from a judge's perspective to kind of put all those things together. I'll talk about the two and then we'll put them together. The red belt, the one that's in front of me, I like this one's body dimension, his muscle. He's just squareness and mass. He's a stout featured one that's big top and big ended, got lots of product and dimension. He's big chested and bold sprung. I don't like the front third of that one. His head reads very mature in the way that he's made. He's just a little coarse in the way he's made up in the fore region of his body, and that's where I'd change that one just a little bit. Just lengthen him, extend him out in that fore region of his body. The blue hog, that's a big backed, big ended one. Lots of muscle, lots of product, lots of dimension all the way throughout. You'd bold him, you'd make him bolder at the ground, you'd stouten him up in his bone work. His bone doesn't match his muscle, and by that I mean he's just a little more refined in his bone work, and you just make him stouter. You'd open him up at the base of his chest to make him match the muscle that he's got on the top side of his cavity and the dimension that he's got out through his rump. So he doesn't balance quite as well from that perspective because those two things don't come together. I want to give this young lady some props because I've beat on her all day long with her pigs, and she's come back to the ring every time with a smile, and she's come and she's worked her tail off to get her up here towards the front end of the class with this one. And so I give her lots of props. It's not going to get you all the way in this one, but it's going to get you darn close. I like the red belted one to win. I like the blue one to be second. Got a blue one, another blue one that's going to come out next that if we could soften this one up in its body a little bit, flex it a little differently in its spine. When it gets on the drive, it wants to get high in its center and off in its rump. It wants to just get roached up a little bit in the way that it's made. We want to just ease in its top line, ease it out of its hip and make it move just a little differently. But a good muscled one that's wide and muscular over his top, big out of his rump. He's neat looking from the side. We just need to fix his skeleton. This one is a little better in his skeleton, a little quicker in his made, a little finer in his feature, a little plainer in his overall build. Doesn't have quite the look and the balance. He's simply got more muscle than the Berkshire that's going to complete the class. He's wider, bolder, stouter. He's got more dimension. And we end with one that's good skeleton that simply needs to be wider and bolder. Another really good class. Let's give him a nice round of applause. Good job, bud. Good job, young lady. Sorry.
Please bring all your first and second place crosses to the show ring. First and second place crosses to the show ring. Class 7, first place went to Jaylee England, Cottonwood 4-H. Second place went to Ashton Tarvin, Country Clovers. Third place went to Swayze Fulmar, Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, Hyde Chadwick, Loving 4-H. And fifth place, Adriana Nieto, Loving 4-H.
Again, if you're ringside, I'd ask you to put your hands together. Let's give them all a great big round of applause here for really just an outstanding crossbred division, and I think ones that just do lots and lots of good things. Again, they're sound, they're flexible, they're stout, they're good ribbed, they're good bodied, they're muscular, and yet they're fresh in their build. They've got some shape of rib and some body dimension. They're stout in their skeleton, they're opened up in their cavity, and they got a neat kind of a look when you get off the side of them. Again, they're, for me, there's one of them that just hits me really hard. Runs smooth uphill, got great shape, got a huge chest, really got a big back and a big rump, and yet when you get off the side of this one, I think does lots and lots of good things from a build and design standpoint. Ultra flexible, really got a neat look, got a lot of balance. I like this one right here. We had in that second, we talked about that one, really a big muscled one, big ended, lots of product, lots of dimension. You maybe change it skeletally just a little bit if you're gonna just get picky on that one, but he fits into the group and he does it well. My reserve is maybe one that you gotta walk with me a little bit, one that I think is so neat in a lot of places, and one that I think in 60 days could be an absolute beast. One that's just level and square and correct, and really got a neat build, tall shouldered, really got a lot of shape and dimension for his size. One that balances up exceptionally well, yet is really busted open. You study the way he comes from his blade to his knee to the ground, and then study him up over his back and out through his hip, and the way the proportions when you get off the side of him. I think he does a lot of really good things, and I think he could be deadly when you get to your state fair time. I like this one right here to be our reserve champion.
Your champion cross went to Julianne Cortese from Class 5, and your reserve cross went to Brooklyn Evans from Class 1. Congratulations. We need all of your champion breeds to the show ring and all of your reserves to the wash rack. Champion breeds to the show ring and reserves to the wash rack. we please get your reserve breeds to the wash rack? Reserve breeds to the wash rack. Randy, you ready?
All right. Well, certainly, again, it's been my pleasure to come back down and sort through them. Just a phenomenal show. Lots of quality and really great kids, and just a really excellent set of young people. Let's give them a great big round of applause. One more group I'd like you to give a great big round of applause to is everybody that's worked back in here, getting everything worked and getting pigs in and out of pens and making it. Give them a huge round of applause. I know from a judge's perspective, it's just make things go a lot better when you got a great group. Got a great group that work back in here and keep everything moving, and I thought they've done an outstanding job tonight. Again, it's been my pleasure. I'll talk about them just a little bit. You know, we started with the Berkshires and the OPBs, or with the Berkshire gilt, and that's from a Berkshire standpoint, that's a really good kind of a gilt. She's stout, she's level, she's square, she's muscular, she gets out and moves well. One that's flexible and got a neat kind of a look, and you like that one's balance and build, I think, extremely well, and I think does lots of good things. Durock Pig's one that, again, just invested a really nice set of Durocks, and that's a good barrel. He's stout-limbed, he's good-bodied. Top of him, he's got a big, thick kind of a rump, and he balances good when you get off the side of him. I think he too puts lots of good in one package. Yorkshire's one that, again, shapely, and I got a neat build. One that is stout in his limbs, and you get his head up, and he kind of puts everything together and kind of balances up and brings them all together. Hampshire's another one of them that's just really got a stout forelimb and got a big chest, and one that's big over his back, and one that's again, get off the side of him, you appreciate that one's look, his build, and his design. Does lots of good things. And you got the crossbred, and that one just a neat built one from the side and really attractive. And then you ask that one to come to you and go away from you. It's an incredible chested one that's huge backed and big hipped, and one that's got a great shape in his body, and one that's just got a really neat kind of a build. Does lots and lots of good things in one package. Young lady, you got our champion. We had in our second from that crossbred division, and one that I'm kind of, I'll be honest with you, if this one was 50 or 60 pounds heavier, I could get really twisted off about build and design and flexibility and look and balance. I think, you start studying him relative to the Hampshire. He's got more in his pants than what the Hampshire's got. Relative to the Durock, he's got more up high and he's got more down low than the Durock. Relative to the Yorkshire, he's better behind his blade, he's bolder in his rib. Better than from the Berkshire. He's better in his rib shape and his body. And so you start kind of putting all those things together. The young crossman will be our reserve champion out here today.
Your grand champion, Swine, went to Julianne Cortese with her cross, and Grand Reserve went to Brooklyn Evans with her.
Bye.